Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
Hi everyone. Thank you everyone at Los Amigos in Germany at the location Hanau for having me. My name is Jukka. I hail from Finland and I've been a Masters of the Universe fan ever since I was a little kid back in the 80s. The mini-comic collection, it actually was revealed in a listing for some bookshops because they have to know their listings and orders ahead of time. So it came as a bit of a surprise to people. And in my case, I had been talking with editor from Dark Horse in regards to the first book, The Art of He-Man, and I had suggested if they contact a couple people who worked on the 2002 show, because I knew they had some interesting sketches and illustrations for the show, and I thought that, well, a art book should definitely have those because we haven't seen them anywhere else. They were not included in the DVD releases, which did have a whole bunch of special features, and some of them were background art and sketches and concept illustrations. But for the book by Dark Horse, I had sent them info that, hey, this is a person you should check out if something can be worked out. I forget if they got anything done, but at least in the book, nothing, the topics I had suggested didn't sadly come about. So when the information came that there would be a mini-comic collection, I contacted this person at Dark Horse and just politely and very naive fashion asked that, hey, will you guys be doing them in some story order or production code order? Is there like any preference? Because there are some inconsistencies in the stories and other things to consider. This idea just, I mean, came from the BCI released DVDs for Filmation, where they had people like James Eatock to help to look over the episodes and help decide which would be best production order, or maybe airing order, or script approval order. I mean, there are many ways that in Filmation you could switch around the episodes. But he helped, for example, determine that, well, maybe here's an episode with Orko's uncle that he returns in episode 23, let's say. I forget the actual number. But then in production order, maybe 27, you have the first appearance of said uncle. So obviously those two would switched around. Even if the production order says it one thing, the story continuity does not support it. And from this mindset, I just contacted, hey, with Minicomics, will you be looking into this at all? I mean, it was a very cold opening email that just sending it out, and but he was a very warm about it, and very kind to answer back even. I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't reply back on all of those types of fans where someone is just being a fanboy. I mean, they are an actual business with a lot of projects to handle, so. But they replied back very graciously, and they mentioned that they can look into that definitely. And then I think a couple days later, I actually got a Skype call from Val Staples again, and he mentioned that he was the one who was working on the minicomic book with restoring and looking over the project. And he then asked me that, well, I hear you contacted them and they sent it to me, and do you have any other notes that would be like anything that we might have missed and what could be included? And he mentioned that they would be putting all the mini comics and other comics that were included with toys. So not every mini comic would be included, something like with 2002 related things. As an example, they had the game by TDK Interactive, and at the time there was a mini comic that sort of was the introduction story before the events of the game. But because that mini comic, for example, was not packaged with a toy, so that would not be included in this book. So things like that. And but yeah, we discussed this, and I again mentioned that, well, since you're listening to me for a bit, can there be any maybe intro trivia like things to these mini comics, something about the actual order of them, or a character which has a character introduction or something else. And again, this came very much just from the DVD idea. They also had in their special scene change sections, they had like listed some little trivia about the episodes. I think they were written by people like James Eatock, Alex Hawkey for He-Man and She-Ra respectively. So, and they selected someone that would be on DVD and all that. So again, just being a big fan of Filmation kinda brought me to this moment of, hey, could the mini comics have a trivia? And so he said that, well, we'll look into it, and I want you to put together a list of things that you can think up, and how would you write them. And I think I sent this one page with maybe 3 or 4 different mini comics where I just bullet pointed some of these and said that, well, here's something, and like, can you use them somewhere? And he wasn't sure if they would be included somewhere in the book, if there would be introductory pages for each mini comic, or how could they be even implemented, because the main because the main point and the biggest hurdle and work was that they needed all the mini comics scanned and restored best to the abilities for the book. So they didn't even, it wasn't a topic really that, well, let's have these trivia info there. So I think it took a bit of while that they looked into it, that could this actually happen, and very happy that they did. And so you can see them on the pages, for example. And some of them are about the characters' first appearances, their looks that would be derived from the original concept art, and maybe something if there was a connection to the cartoon or something else. And I wrote a whole bunch of them, and luckily quite a few made it in. And the mini comic collection by Dark Horse has so far gotten at least a Spanish translation and a French version, and in both of them they included the trivia. So it's a great feeling to know that something I wrote has been translated, at least into other languages. So hopefully they'll get a German version of the mini comic collection one day. So maybe the trivia could also be present there. Who knows? Having worked on all those official projects, I thought that I would be doing an unofficial one, and that would be the 2002 cartoon guide, which you can see right here. And it's just text version, no images, written in English, inspired by James Etock and his unofficial guide to the Filmation cartoon that he did. I think it's been over a decade now, and he got to work on the official version, and you never know, maybe this unofficial thing can go official at some point. Fingers crossed. So it's been a long time writing that. I have been, the writing actually took a little over a year. So I had episode synopsis help from Patrick Mosley, and I handled then on the review and trivia and altered deleted scenes, and I wrote synopsis on the special The World of He-Man. So, and all that during a pandemic. So it's something that shook the entire world, and in my case helped refocus some things that I wanted to do. I also at the time had a studies going at the same time, so always gotta put all the possible projects at the same time. Never can have it easy. But the guide covers all the episodes from season 1 and 2, and also the unproduced one, episode 40, and the special World of He-Man, which was made for VHS to be included with toys that introduces some characters to the kids. And there are some other little tidbits there, interviews that I managed to include, and you'll see it. And for Los Amigos in 2022, there is an exclusive hardcover version, which is this. It's a bit due to the differences in page dimensions. It is bigger, but not as thick. So all the same content, same info, once again to find and discover. So everyone in the convention, hope to see you grab your copy of it while you can. There is a limited edition of these, so my passion for 2002 mostly stems from the cartoon side, and that harkens back to being a big fan of animation itself. I've loved Disney's classic feature animation, or even the Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck shorts that were on in the 50s and anything. So I've just lived and breathed animation since I was a kid, and the whole process has always fascinated me. So with Filmation being my first proper introduction to He-Man, that carried over to the 2002 version, which struck a chord that I really liked how they were able to use elements from older material, but then come up with new stories and streamline some ideas, maybe tweak some of them. So in my heart, I'll always have a big spot for Filmation, but the MYP version is very much close to it. So the cartoon is my preferred media. The idea for this 2002 unofficial guide stemmed from actually working on the official books at Dark Horse on Masters of the Universe, because there was a lot of enthusiasm for what types of projects there could be. Maybe a toy guide, maybe a collection of the London edition comics, maybe something about the DC comics or Marvel comics or anything like that. So, and I mean, DC made their own omnibus, so that got covered, but then something like the London edition comics, I mean, they are such a huge thing that I'm not sure how many volumes that would just be, even if it's if they got to scan and reprint those. But I did at the time pitch 2002 styled idea to Val Staples on his request. We knew at the time, I think the animated guide on Filmation was coming out, and we had seen already some preview pages of it, so I made this mock-up where I used basically the same layout and everything, so added the episode synopsis, trivia, cast of characters, and all of that, so, and added storyboard images, concept and model images to it, and sent it, and he was excited about it, and he said that they will look it over with Dark Horse and see if anything could be done. Nothing sadly came of it. They still kept on the current projects that they were already involved with at the time, so there was the character guide was one of them that we were still working on, as I recall. So the 2002 never really went anywhere. So, and after they finished with the supplemental version of the character guide and the toy guide, I had this idea that, well, I'll try and do an unofficial one. Just something that I've always wanted to do, and very much inspired by James E. Tuck's book, which he did a decade prior, the unofficial guide to the Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I even contacted James and mentioned that, hey, I'm gonna be doing this, and basically asked that, can I use your book as an inspiration, and he said that yes, you are welcome to use his book as his guide as a guide for mine. So I didn't use exactly the elements, but it's very much inspired. So if you have the unofficial guide by James E. Tuck for the Filmation cartoon, this is an official version for the 2002 cartoon. So hopefully you'll enjoy both for their worth. The actual time to work on it, well, in one way it took all this time prior that I've been working on it in my head ever since I first saw the pilot movie back in August 16, 2002. But the physical part of it was the little over a year it took me to write it all down. And during it I had a pre-order window for fans where I was able to get enough orders so it made the whole project feasible. I was still working on it at the time, and it gave me also more inspiration to keep on going and try and include more information and more research that I could. So it's I felt in a similar way how some documentaries get done on nowadays, when you have people working on a documentary and they have started already doing some interviews, then they have a Kickstarter and they get it funded so they can then actually go to location and interview people and all that. So in my case it mostly secured that I could get a certain amount of books done, and so it was lot of support from the fans, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. With the favorite episode, I would say it's Lessons from season 1, written by Larry DiTilio. He is a veteran of Filmation writers, working both on He-Man and She-Ra already, and he and others were included in the 2002 version. His episode works on many levels, and it sets up some things that would pay in season 2. It's an Orko story, but there's also Evil Lynn and some of her origin, and they introduce a new character, the Faceless One, and there's a magical talisman of the week. Many things that at first you might think that, well, how is this a great episode? I mean, shouldn't there something else? But it's from the little things it comes together. It makes very entertaining, informative episode. It does not miss any scenes. Like, every scene counts that it makes it. There's character-driven moments, and it just works. And if you have Filmation background, so you have watched those episodes as a kid, it'll give you even more bang for your buck. But even if you haven't seen Filmation, it still works as a standalone. It works on its own 2 legs, even though there are still elements that are tied to the serialization of the story that was going on in the cartoon itself. Least favorite episode. Funny enough, it's also from season 1, and it's very close in production order to the one I mentioned as my favorite. The one that I personally don't really like is episode The Deep End. It treads so much of the same elements that we already had prior to just 2-3 episodes ago. There's a giant fish again, and Man-at-Arms is swallowed up by it, and we spend seeing him be in the belly of the beast and his resourcefulness. But it's like things we already know about Man-at-Arms. Even if this episode did not exist, it didn't teach us anything new about the character, or even about when He-Man comes to rescue him. The small redeeming part of the episode is that when the fish is threatening Castle Grayskull, and the heroic warriors are there to defend it up to the point of almost destroying the fish, and that is when Skeletor learns that, hey, there's something going on. They did all that just to protect this stone castle in the middle of nowhere. Like, that is something I need to look into, because in Skeletor's story arc, there's a gradual go about how he discovers things, trying to learn who He-Man is, and does He-Man have the power of the Elders? Where are the Elders? And all that, and it slowly builds up in the first like 10-11 episodes. And this episode, if it did not exist at all, we really wouldn't be missing out on anything. It's the very last like 2 minutes of the episode that make it worth that it still has a place in all of the story for the longer journey, but it's for me not a personal favorite. That's a good question. The possibility, it always depends on Mattel, whatever they want to do with the property. I think the MYP show, it did manage to be on Netflix back in 2011 or 2012. There were a couple of fans who at least reported that they had been able to watch episodes on it, but that was very short-lived. At the time, Mill Creek were releasing the DVDs, so it has been waiting a long time that it would be great to have on Blu-ray, and hopefully they will look into it at some point. Currently, they have the Revelation and the CGI version of those two shows, which I think Mill Creek will be releasing. They haven't given any details yet, so hopefully those will be on Blu-ray, and whatever response people have on those, maybe Mattel and with whomever will look into getting the 2002 on Blu-ray as well, because it would really shine on a big widescreen, high definition stand. Like, looking at a big screen, it would just look awesome. So fingers crossed. Ranking on the shows. Well, in my case, I did like the newer versions, Revelation and the CGI show. Currently, Revelation has only just announced that they will get the second season, titled Revolution, and with CGI He-Man, there is still from their initial 26 episode order, which was made in 2020, they have not shown all of those episodes, so there's still 8 episodes left of their episode order. So, but it's been great from what I've seen, and so I do want to sort of place Filmation and MYP at the top. I really don't want to say either one as better than the other, because they have such different varying degrees on which I like more. Filmation might have the nostalgic edge, and just because they have much more episodes, that also gives them a slight advantage. If MYP had more episodes, it might change the dynamic. After them, I would have maybe the CGI show and Revelation and New Adventures. New Adventures is the last, mostly because the animation is great and the stories are pretty awesome. It's such a departure for He-Man, so that is I mostly enjoy it when I'm thinking about it as a cartoon show from the late 80s, early 90s, about space and these characters' adventures. But it's like in my mind, I still have to sort of remove it, that it's not like He-Man and Skeletor, even though they are there, but I feel I can enjoy that more when I'm not looking at it strictly that this is He-Man, if that makes any sense. Hope you enjoy the convention. Terveisiä Suomesta, and have a good one. I'll talk to you again soon, and go check out my videos when I get some new ones made. Take care. Good journey. Bye bye.